Been a while, Sam. It's good to see you.
It's been 2 years since the release of Death Stranding. At the time, I gave Hideo Kojima's backbreaking Delivery Man Simulator a 6.8, and here's what I said about it. Certain landmark games in recent years, like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Red Dead Redemption 2, have managed to successfully tread the line between the rigidity of realism and the exhilaration of pure escapism. Death Stranding possesses similarly lofty ambitions, inventive ideas, and a sprawling, spectacular map, but it's all been saddled on a backbone made of repetitive mission design and arduous traversal that simply can't support its weight over the full course of the journey. Since then, I've met just as many people who have played Death Stranding and completely loved it, as people who've bounced off it within its intentionally grueling opening hours. It's the latter group that this PS5 Director's Cut seems to be aimed at, since its raft of player-friendly features have been added specifically to make more manageable molehills out of its many formidable mountains. It's just odd that so many of these concessions seem to directly contradict the deliberate hard-working spirit that many appreciated about the original version, which makes the Director's Cut feel somewhat compromised as a result. The new firing range is definitely a welcome inclusion. Accessed via the terminal at any distribution centre, it allows you to get to grips with every weapon, and each of them now feels more distinct thanks to the subtle feedback afforded by the DualSense's adaptive triggers. On top of just blasting paper targets, there are around 30 different VR drills in which you compete against the clock. These are enjoyable little challenges in their own right, but more importantly, they allow you to get a feel for Death Stranding's combat without the risk of losing any precious cargo that comes with trying to learn to fight while you're out on the job. The firing range may provide a safe space to master Death Stranding's fighting, but it's not as game-changing as the Buddy Bot and Cargo Catapult. Expanding on its limited presence in the original game, the Buddy Bot can now be used in a number of different ways. It can strut along behind you carrying all your gear, or you can load it up with a shipment, slap it on its sassy robot ass, and watch it sprint off into the distance to the cargo's intended destination. If that still sounds like too much hard work, it can even carry your Norman Reedus-shaped sack of bones all the way to the nearest distribution centre on autopilot, which is huge news for anyone who's ever wondered what it must feel like to be a bored house cat riding a Roomba.
It's not so bad.
Meanwhile, the cargo catapults allow you to load up your boxes and fire them hundreds of meters across the map. It's a bit like using one of the Angry Birds as a carrier pigeon. There is a limit to how far you can launch your flying freight, but it's at least far enough to clear some of the nastier crevices or wider rivers in Kojima's stunning, albeit oddly Icelandic, vision of post-apocalyptic America. However, while the cargo catapult and Buddy Bot certainly make completing orders less painful in Death Stranding, they don't necessarily make them actually fun. At the end of the day, you're still moving stacks of indistinguishable boxes from A to B over and over again. Just because a menial task is made to be easier, doesn't make it any less dull or repetitive. The calculator app on my phone may well prevent me from having to count on my fingers, but it certainly doesn't mean I gain any more excitement out of doing my taxes. In fact, although I certainly had my frustrations with the original cut of Death Stranding, never once did I think its demanding deliveries were in any way arduous by accident. That makes it especially odd that some of these director's cut additions seem to actively undermine what I interpret to be the whole meaning behind the gameplay. Unless I'm mistaken, the rewards in Death Stranding are intended to be earned by carefully managing cargo and plotting intelligent routes to your destination in order to make a successful delivery.
Not bad.
However, the Buddy Bot takes that stiff challenge, loads it onto its cargo tray, and literally walks it all the way back, taking any potential sense of satisfaction along with it. Look at these guys, still walking on their own 2 feet. They've got robot legs for that now, you idiots. Meanwhile, there are a handful of features presumably intended to entice die-hard Death Stranding fans. Or die-hard fans, as Kojima prefers to call them, probably. But much like the contents of Sam's backpack after he's taken yet another tumble down a modest incline, these are a bit of a mixed bag. The new racetrack features just 2 unremarkable circuits that can only be raced in simple solo time trials. Ironically, for a game otherwise preoccupied with weight management and inertia, the 3 vehicles on offer here exhibit a noticeable lack of heft. The sleek new Roadster vehicle is at least fast enough to be thrown sideways around a sharp corner, but the way you're brought to an instant halt should you even touch the trackside rumble strip kind of sucks the fun out of it. It's no wonder that Monster Energy has seemingly pulled its products out of the director's cut, since Death Stranding's bland brand of circuit racing is about as far away from extreme sports as you can get. You do at least get access to the Roadster for general use in the world. It's only really practical to take it out on one of the player-paved highways though, since attempting to steer the sports car's low suspension over Death Stranding's otherwise jagged terrain feels about as smooth as trying to iron the creases out of a shirt made of rhinestones. As far as additional story content goes, the new ruined factory area provides an interesting space to explore, but there's just not enough of it to really leave a mark. It's effectively comprised of two main areas that each house a small gaggle of guards to take out, a token Metal Gear Solid reference, and then a short sequence that gives some fresh insight into the backstory of one of Sam's closest allies. If you're fascinated by the end-of-the-world lore that Kojima Productions has created, then you'll likely lap this up. But just don't go in expecting an enormous amount of new information to uncover. Elsewhere, there are ramps to build if you fancy going from Postman Pat to Evil Knievel. There's a new mazer gun that allows you to wrangle mules into submission like a Ghostbusters proton pack. You can even customize BB's pod with a number of cosmetic options, including wood grain and leather, although unfortunately none of those options is soundproof. Oh no, not this again. Shouldn't this kid be a toddler by now? A long list of quality of life improvements makes the PS5 Director's Cut the most feature-rich and accessible version of Death Stranding. If you're yet to experience its gorgeous vistas and general sci-fi weirdness, and you're not turned off at the thought of a 40-hour fetch quest, then this is the best way to enjoy its fiction with the least amount of friction. However, by giving us powerful new cargo moving tools that allow us to forego heavily burdened hikes in favour of walking the path of least resistance, it diminishes frustration at the cost of any sense of hard-earned gratification. This may be called a director's cut, but I can't help but feel that, for better or worse, the PS4 original perhaps more closely resembles the director's vision. For more IGN reviews, check out our verdicts on Kena Bridge of Spirits and Eastward. And for everything else, stick with IGN.